The black segment, which is a very short segment, is based on the modern observation. You'll see a limited period of time that we have the actual observations that we've been collecting. The blue line is the model projections. You can see that there is very large uncertainty with our knowledge. Therefore, it is absolutely important for us to continue to do research in this area. What are the contributing areas to this sea level variability and change? We know that the small glaciers and ice caps on land cover a small area. Their volume is very small. The white area on the histogram is the volume, very small amount, and relatively small area, but currently they are melting and therefore contributing the largest amount to the sea level. The second area is the Greenland, the second largest ice sheet on the planet. It has a relatively medium-sized area and volume, and its contribution is second. The largest area is Antarctica, and its volume, and it's contributing the least amount. So this is a subject of research that we do, basically WCRP coordinating, to understand how these changes are affecting sea level variability and change. This is specifically our knowledge, how our knowledge has progressed over the past 20 years about the Greenland. You will see that clearly based on the observations alone, we can say more reliably how much of the Greenland is melting, therefore how much is contributing to sea level. So again, the idea here is for us to be able to have this information to explain what is happening to the sea level, because most of the coastal systems are really vulnerable. The cities and people, settlements, having this information in advance will help prepare as far as defense systems are concerned for the societies and for the cities. Another area that contributes to the sea level variability is the sea ice. The red line is the observations. All these colored lines are models. Again, the models are not quite good enough to give us a good measure of this change. This is an area of research for WCRP to make greater progress. So all in all, these examples give you an indication that the research that we do requires truly international coordination, because this is very difficult problems, and no one organization, no one nation can do this alone. Therefore, it requires international cooperation. There are more than 20 modeling centers around the world that they come together every year, decide what type of experiments they must do, what type of simulations they must carry on, in order to answer some specific questions that the decision makers are asking. And Dr. Al-Mazrui was explaining how your Center of Excellence is doing this. So hopefully your Center of Excellence become a member of this international network that generates this type of information, and not only do it for their own country, they share this information with the rest of the world. These are the centers you see: China, US, Italy, France, Argentina. They are all participating in this, and the knowledge that they generate, the information that they generate, they share with the rest of the world without any restrictions. They have set up a data system, a portal, and nodes in every continent around the world, and scientists can access this information and do their research and publish their results. This is the record of the data used from the last set of experiments that this group did in 2005-2006 timeframe, and the number of peer-reviewed publications that have been published based on this, again, by scientists who were not involved in these experiments. So the information is being shared freely among all the scientists in the world. These are some examples of the latest set of experiments that are being conducted with these models. Again, the results will be available soon. And another area that WCRP is now focusing, as Dr. Mazrui mentioned, is the extremes. What is happening? What we are putting together a library of the extreme events that we have observed, we have information about over the past decade, and trying to treat each one of these as a case study to understand the root causes of these, to find out were there causes in the atmosphere, in the ocean, on the land, and can we explain what triggered the formation of these extreme events? One thing that we will notice is that the extreme events vary from region to region. Some regions are more vulnerable to the cyclones and tropical storms. In other areas are basically, the blue is the cold spell or the heat waves. So the nature of extremes vary from region to region. Therefore, this requires regional science and regional expertise to understand and explain these events. So this is an area of focus for us. These are the general questions that the public is asking us, WCRP. Can you say whether these extremes are increasing, are getting more intense, are they lasting longer or affecting a larger area? We really do not have the answer to those questions. And the last question is that, are these caused by the climate change or climate warming or not? Again, we cannot say definitively that is the case, and that's why it's a subject of research for us. But let me give you a few examples of what we know. When we, scientists looked at the temperature records over Europe and looked at two different periods, 1880 to 2005, they see that clearly a major trend developing, that it's regionally specific over Europe. Over France, they see that clearly there is an increase in the temperature variance. You see the peak is shifting from the left to the right, from blue to the red, and the spread is becoming wider. But over the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, our region, they see that there is definitely a skewness, that the distribution are separating from each other. So even in the same continent or over the same general area, the phenomena that contributes to these extreme temperature changes are different, and we must understand the phenomena before we could really explain what is triggering or what is causing these. So it's not a very straightforward and simple question to answer. The other two examples, if you take the heat wave of 2003 over Europe and look at all the existing observations from the previous 1,000 years, you will see that the red line in 2003 was in a class by itself, was not in that distribution at all. So this is a very unusual phenomenon. And even if we have all the observations from the past, we cannot draw any conclusions from the past observations to say something about the heat wave of 2003, because it was a unique phenomenon, a unique condition. So we are trying to understand what really caused that uniqueness. The same can be said about the heat wave that Russia experienced last summer. Over about 1,000 years of record that Russia had, this particular heat wave was in a class by itself. Nothing comparable to what had happened in the past 1,000 years. Once again, we're trying to understand why is it so unique? Is it, what is the root cause of this change? So naturally, when you superimpose these extreme events on the warming trends that is being predicted, it's really somewhat concerning that if these events happen frequently, there are, by the standards, are not that warm, they're cool. So it is extremely important for us to understand what triggers, what causes these extreme events, to prepare to explain what might be in the future. The same can be said about the flooding systems. And this is basically some study done over the US that they observed that although the total amount of precipitation over a given season does not change, but the episode that they get them in larger amounts is increasing. The same conclusion has been reached over India when they look at the 50 years of monsoonal system. They get the same amount of precipitation during the season, but they get them in 2, 3 big events instead of many smaller events. Agriculture depends, the arid agriculture in India depends on the distribution of that precipitation over the entire season. By getting it in 2, 3 big events, it really is perturbing their agriculture. So once again, understanding the phenomena, explaining it, preparing for it, perhaps maybe storing the water and redistributing it throughout the season can help Indian farmers to manage the drought or the changes in the monsoonal system more effectively. And another example is that people are really asking, is there a change in the tropical cyclones and hurricanes, the frequency, the magnitude of them? And this is one study, again I have to be very careful here, based on the last set of modeling simulations that indicate that again, the total number of cyclones or tropical storms may not change, but the larger ones, the category 5 or larger ones, may be increasing, and the smaller and medium-sized tropical cyclones and hurricanes decreasing. So that is another active area of research. And these experiments, the modeling experiments that your center will be able to do, and we will be able to say something about what is happening in this part of the world. So as you can see that these are the type of research that truly no one organization, no one nation can do, requires international cooperation, requires centers of excellence that have disciplines of oceanography, disciplines of atmospheric sciences, agriculture, and this is, the King Abdulaziz University is really a perfect example of having those expertise and disciplines, and now having a climate modeling center that can bring those expertise and knowledge together to provide this type of knowledge for your region, but more importantly also participate in the global climate research programs that we would be happy to provide that networking. So as you can see, the challenge is for us to understand this, observe, understand the system, but equally important for us to translate that knowledge, make it available to decision makers. The combination of increase in volume of observations, we have to make these models more sophisticated, increase their resolution so that we can say something about the regions and local, absolutely requires supercomputing capabilities. The computational capabilities key to the success of such a project, and I'm really very pleased to hear that your university is considering to invest significantly in this area of having the tools available for your researchers to do this kind of science. Clearly, the complexity of these predictions is going to increase as we look at the agriculture, water resources, economic development, and these models become more sophisticated and the analysis tools become more sophisticated. Larger number of observations are involved. Once again, it requires really cooperation among scientists from different disciplines, as well as having the tools such as supercomputers to help solve the problem. So these are the requirements that we have identified for the research that WCRP is facilitating. Observations, as I said, are absolutely essential, the first and most important pillar in our efforts. Having computer models will allow us to extend the observations from the past and present to say something about the future. And at the base of all these, unless we understand the phenomena that contributes to these changes, we won't be able to improve the models, we won't be able to provide reliable information or knowledge for decision makers. And as I stated, the ultimate limiting factor is really the human brain. And having the experts to help take full advantage of all these capabilities, this is why the universities are absolutely key players and essential in this whole process.